wanted to create a space for us to come together. I wanted to create a new format on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast, because there are plenty of webinars and classes and lectures already. I don't think we need another class like that right now. And I'm no more qualified to lead this session than any of you. I'm simply organizing it because I have the platform to do so. First off, I'm creating this space for us to share our experiences related to specifically to overcoming obstacles. That's it. Just sharing a story, sharing an experience, not trying to explain, not trying to problem solve. That's the idea here. The idea here is to hide nothing, hold nothing back. That's something I'll try to live up to, and I'll ask each of you to do the same. So if you can agree to that, there's a chat function here. If you could just type the number 1, if you agree to hide nothing, hold nothing back, so we can all know that we're on the same page. Awesome. Thank you. Next, I'll ask no piggybacking, no responding to somebody else's share. So you can, of course, share your reflections, but try not to reflect back on someone else specifically, because you don't want to impose your own idea of what they said. You don't want to project something that they didn't necessarily mean. That's the idea there. So I'll ask that everyone please agree to that as well. So just type number 1 in the chat, raise your hand, thumbs up, just so we're all on the same page there. Awesome. And then finally, I'll ask that we all agree we're not in problem-solving mode. We're just sharing our stories, sharing our insights, and just letting those flow. And speaking that out is part of solving it in the moment. But this is really handling more of the emotional, experiential side, not just the rational. This can't be solved with a formula or a diagram necessarily. It's a deeper level of understanding that we're looking to get here. So I ask everyone to please agree to that. Well, just type the number 1 or raise your hand, give a thumbs up. Excellent. Thank you. And again, I'll ask everyone to just turn on your videos. That's one of the ground rules here to participate as well, that we can really connect with each other, not to be some faceless entity. We'll dive in. I think that given the number of people here, we've got about 8 people here. I think that probably 5-minute shares will work well for this. So I'm going to ask that everyone please keep their share or experience to no longer than 5 minutes. And if you go over 5 minutes, I'll gently interrupt you. And that's not meant to shut you down or anything. It's just to respect everyone's time and so that everyone has an equal opportunity to share their stories. So I'll jump in and share my story to begin, just to kind of lay the framework of what I'm looking to do. And all of you can feel free to do whatever you like, just one idea. So I feel like, and I don't really talk about this much, so this is not practiced or rehearsed or anything. It's really that growing up, I've always felt like I was never enough. Growing up, my parents always really encouraged me to go to an Ivy League college. Even when I was in elementary school, middle school, it was like going to an Ivy League was like the ticket. It was the big prize. It was the everything. That was really burned into me from the beginning. And so I always felt like I had to live up to that dream. I had to live up to that goal, that it would be the magic key that unlocked my entire life's success. And so for me, it was always all or nothing. Either I thought I could rock something 100%, or it wasn't even worth trying. So I remember in middle school, 7th grade biology, science was not my thing. And I felt like I just wasn't getting what the class was about. And so I totally just tuned out. I stopped paying attention. When the day before the final, I was like curled up in the couch, reading a novel. Like that's how I was spending my time. My parents came along. They were like, "What are you doing? Your finals are tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I kind of get it, whatever." And I bombed that exam. It wasn't for me. Then high school rolls around and I wasn't good at math either. I was always more of a humanities person, but I was like, I'm going to make it my mission to ace these exams, specifically because in New York State, we have the Regents exams, and the Regents are a little bit like the LSAT, where you have all the old test forms published. So if you look at the old ones, you can be fully prepared for the new ones. And so I was obsessed. Like the 3 days before the Regents, I was holed up. I like closed the door and I was just doing exam after exam after exam. Math wasn't my thing, but I rocked the Regents and got 100. Whereas my friends who were excellent at math, they were getting like 95, 97. They were like, how did Steve do that? He's not a math person. It was because I learned the formats. Then college rolls around and I totally was like just excited to be in college. I got into Columbia and I ended up not even going to classes, not even turning in assignments. I was just socializing. That was really my focus. I'd be like running to hand it into the professor like 1 minute before it was due. That's how I was approaching it freshman year, sophomore year. I wasn't taking full advantage of the experience. And so the question was like, why was I even there? So I guess my point here is really that the goal isn't always what you think it is. And sometimes the obstacles are just yourself. That's really what I took from that. And I've in my life, I've gone in other directions where I've gone way too far to the extremes. This is funny. I read this book called Born to Run about people who run barefoot. And the whole argument was that our bodies are wired to be able to run barefoot, and sneakers or that give tons of support aren't worthwhile. It's better to just go barefoot. And so that's what I did. I actually ran a half marathon completely barefoot. I was obsessed. Like every other day, I'd be running 8 miles in Central Park completely barefoot. I only got glass in my foot twice, as if that wasn't a red flag of something. And I ended up ultimately hurting my feet. I ran an 18-mile practice run in training for a full marathon, and I hurt my foot. To this day, still like nearly 10 years later, I can't run more than like a few minutes without feeling those symptoms coming back. If I do it longer, I'll feel it for days. I can't wear sandals anymore. And this is something I've done to myself. And I don't know what drove me to do this. I don't know why I thought any of this was a good idea, but it was just pushing myself to those limits. And sometimes it's worth slowing down. Sometimes it's a marathon, not a sprint, but also sometimes it's a marathon where you actually have to train for it properly and do the research, not just have some half-baked idea and go forward with that. So that's my 5 minutes. Sade, I know you were next, so I'll invite you to unmute yourself and feel free to dive in and share your story.
Hey y'all, my name is Sade. So I originally am from Texas, but live in Washington, D.C., but currently in Texas, quarantining with my family. So I'll guess the story that I'm going to share kind of is like what I've been kind of going through right now. A little context behind my family. So I'm an only child, and my dad is a Nigerian immigrant, and my mother was born here in the States, and she's Black American. So she passed away when I was 2. It was just me and my dad for 6 years. And then my dad remarried when I was around 10. And my mom, I call her my mom, I don't call her my stepmom or anything like that. But my mama, she's white. And so I've kind of had this very interesting dynamic of like a Nigerian culture and then a white family. So it's like, it's very 2 different extremes. And then coming to like raise me up, I'm kind of just like this literally African American Black girl raised in the States. And so I've been coming when I've been home and just been like talking to my family, trying to actually bring up conversations about race, given like the context and the climate that we're in. And it's very interesting because I feel like some of the stuff that I would expect my father to think in terms of just like the context of what we're in, we're kind of like always on the opposite pages a little bit. And so it's very interesting. And it kind of, it's been challenging me to kind of just see things from his perspective and also realize that like there's a huge generational gaps that exist between me and my father. And I sometimes have to realize that like these kind of conversations are not like just a predicament of my relationship with me and my father, but it's also a predicament about like what I will be experiencing later in my life. Give me 1 second. Sorry, my dad was just yelling at me to come down for dinner, so I had to let him know that I'm not coming down. So anyways, but what I was saying is I think like I experienced generational gaps between me and my dad, and I'm like realizing and learning that and how to communicate with him just to be able to express myself about the issues that I see and how I perceive it and like my perspective, and also try to understand his perspective as like an older generation, and also a person who has totally different cultures and views and mindsets in coming to live in the States. So that's kind of where we bump heads. And then kind of seeing that my mom's perspective, who's a white woman and also just like has experienced life in totally different ways than I have, and kind of seeing her perspective, and also like realizing that I shouldn't underestimate her knowledge about the issues that me as her Black daughter are experiencing. And so it's just been really, I think, a blessing being home, just because I'm kind of seeing how my being raised by a Nigerian immigrant and then a white woman has basically kind of given me this like totally different, unique perspective. And the way that I try and have conversations with my friends or people that I will meet, like I'm just anticipating like growth from here, not just for myself, but also people I interact with. So I'm just also like really excited about conversations to continuously put myself in situations where I have conversations with people that may not necessarily be comfortable, but I know that will be necessary for more community growth, such as like this forum that has been put on so generously by Steve. So it's really exciting that like I am somewhat being trained right now, I guess, by speaking with my dad and having debates, for a lack of better words, sometimes with him, and then just hanging out with my mom and going on for walks with her and just talking about stuff. It's just kind of building like a uniqueness in myself that I'm learning and really excited to develop more and moving forward in the world.
Thank you for sharing, Sade. I'm just going to call people as they appear on my screen. Zahid, would you like to share?
Yes, I can do that. So my name is Zahid, and I am originally from the southwestern province of Pakistan, which is called Balochistan. So a lot of people do not know about Balochistan, which I was really surprised here, because a lot of people back home think that people in America know everything about us, but which was the funniest, thing for me when I came to the US and found out, like, well, when you say Balochistan, even like American people call it Balochistan, which is kind of really funny at the same time. So I am currently studying poli-sci at Columbia University. So when I was growing up in Balochistan, like I went to a school which was the medium of instruction was in Urdu. So, and when I came to the US, it was like completely different thing for me to just transition from Urdu to English. And I was going to a community college in Washington State. So in 2016, there was like Balochistan has been under a turmoil, like a political turmoil for the past 2 decades. So for me, like coming to the US, which is like a completely different society where like you are allowed to express your opinion, no, like without like, I mean, of course there are some repercussions for saying anything, but unlike just growing up in a different world and coming to here, and I have really looked at the world in a much different perspective, and especially my experience so far at Columbia has been really amazing. So I guess like this is like I have not attended any university before. Like this is my first time. Like I mean, of course, as an undergraduate student, this would be my first time. So yeah, it's been amazing. I have struggled a lot, especially when you went to a high school which was in a much different language. Then you are in a top US college. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting. Moving forward, I have been like since when I was growing up back home, and I knew that I wanted to pursue a legal career in the future because of the turmoil and things that I've seen, and I feel like I can just go back someday to my country and contribute, to more to the development and progress of my community. So yeah, so I think this is sort of my story. I'm still learning. I still find every day an opportunity to learn about the US, about this culture. Especially New York is quite amazing because it's another world like within the US. So it has been quite amazing. Yeah. So that's sort of my story. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Zahid. Erica?
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Jarvis. I am born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. And just to give you a little bit of my story, when I was 3 years old, I was affected by lead poisoning. That's a big problem in Cleveland, to the point where I had to get lead tested every week I was hospitalized because of lead poisoning, which led to severe behavioral issues in school. I was always a good student academically, but I would have these kind of fits because of what lead poisoning actually did to really crucial years in my development. Moving on, like I said, I always did well in school, athletic. When I went to high school, my senior year, I was pregnant. So I had my first child, still graduated 7th overall in my class. And I remember getting a scholarship, or was offered a scholarship. By this time, I was very well pregnant. I was like 8 months pregnant, and I missed my prom and everything. So I go to the interview, and I show them all my grades. I was also in a college program, so I was working to my associates in high school and pregnant all at the same time. And one of the alumni asked me, well, why do you want to go to college? I'm like, well, I want to go to college. I want to pursue a legal career. I've always wanted to be an attorney. And I said, and plus I have someone that I really want to do well for. I have to now. I have a child. And she looked at me, she said, oh, you can't go to college. You're not going to make it. You're pregnant. And just that, the fetus attitude, just coming to someone for help to, get a higher education, where most students in Cleveland don't finish a high school education, was disheartening to me. So I went on to Cleveland State. In my sophomore year, I had my daughter, very sick, almost flunked out of school, and I had to work my way back up. So in my senior year, I had my third child, and I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And then from there, I went on to get my master's degree. So this was like 5 years later. I had 3 children. I worked a job. And this is something that I wanted to do because I wanted to do it. But along the way, I faced so many obstacles with people saying that you're not going to be able to do it. You're a statistic. You're a young, Black, single mom. And that's where you're going to be. You're going to be on welfare. And so I had to fight those things every day. I grew up in the projects. My father was on crack cocaine for most of my life. And I didn't let those things deter me. But these were hellacious challenges that I had to go through. So fast forward now, unemployed, lost my job, but I've been blessed to be able to take care of my family. My fiance has been blessed to be able to take care of our family, who's my high school sweetheart, by the way. And just really focusing on trying to help someone else through my pain. That's really why I want to become an attorney. And just seeing just the turmoil, which is not new. These racial tensions have been here since African Americans first got here, but really changing the laws to give everyone a fair shot, because it's not like that currently. But yeah, I've been through some obstacles and challenges, and I always, whenever I can, try to help pull somebody up. That's kind of what I live by. I'm not perfect, I have my obstacles, but I don't let those things stop me. So that's kind of where I've been, where my story is. I had lots of obstacles, and it seems as if those obstacles were meant to stop me, meant to stop my progress, things that were out of my control for the most part. But you fight through it. You want something, you work towards it no matter what. You don't let anything stop you. So that's just kind of where I am right now. That's kind of my story. And people look at me like, oh, I don't believe you went through all that. But it made me stronger. It made me stronger. So thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Erica. Natalie, would you like to share?
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie. I was born and raised in Syria. I just came to the US. Actually, I got trapped in the US back in 2012 when the Syrian civil war broke. I was actually on a 2-week vacation in LA when that happened. So I haven't been to my country since. I faced a lot of obstacles when I was here. I did not know English, but I luckily went to French school back in my country. So it helped me catch up with the English. French is somehow similar to English. So my first year here, I actually went to a French school. It was very difficult for me because the level was not the same. It was a lot of obstacles. And my principal there, he looked at me and he's like, you're never going to go to, I always wanted to go to UC for undergrad. And he was like, you're never going to be able to make it to a UC. And then I was like, why? He's like, because you don't know the language, like you're still learning, you're about to graduate high school next year. So that always like put something in me that people saw me less when I came here because of the language difference and because I was not familiar with the culture at all in the United States. As you know, in the Middle East, the culture is very, very different than what it is here. So I graduated, I went to an Armenian private school. Graduated there because my parents thought that it would be easier for me to learn English at that point now that we're going to stay here. So I went there and then I actually was applying to colleges. No one accepted me, even though I graduated with a 4.2 GPA. No one accepted me because I did not have any transcript. And since my school was a French school in Syria, it got burned down due to the ongoing civil war. So I was forced to go to community college. When I was in community college, the classes were very challenging for me. I've always done essay-based tests. For French system, it's always writing essays, and the American system was more multiple choice. It was very difficult for me, but then I got accepted to the UCs I applied to. I even emailed my principal because I had that grudge in me for the longest time. I was like, oh, thanks to you and you motivated me to get accepted to the schools I wanted. And then when I started UC, I went to UC Santa Barbara. So my family got really bad financial situation that my father a few years before had to flew back to Egypt to open his factory again to provide for us. But he's earning in Egyptian money there, the dollar here, and then the Egyptian money fell. It was 3 times more than like less worthy of the dollar. So what happened is that I was commuting to Santa Barbara. I got really sick. I had to take a quarter off from school. Then when I went back, my sister got really ill. She was hospitalized for 3 months at Children's Hospital in LA. So we didn't have any money. So what I did was like I would drive from Santa Barbara to LA every day for work, and I would go back. And at nighttime, I would come back. I would drive to Santa Barbara for my classes, come back, go to work, go to the hospital, because I was the only English speaker in the family, and I was the only one like talking to the doctors. So that happened. Now my sister's feeling okay. She's actually going to attend Columbia this fall. So I'm really excited for her. And then what happened is like as soon as I graduated, I wanted to take the LSAT, but again, I had my really bad symptoms. I took a few months off again to study for the LSAT, and then I couldn't. Every time it was just like every time in the LSAT, I would see words like something small, like war or something, I don't know, something like that. It would just trigger me back, like what happened in Syria. So I had to deal a lot with that. You get used to it. Like I did a lot of exposure with them. Like any small word would have affected me. So I took a break from the LSAT and I tried to do it again. But unfortunately, because of my language barrier, especially when it came to reading comp, it was very, very difficult for me. So I decided that every term I don't understand, I would write it down. I don't want to make it about the LSAT, but just like one of the things that I had to like deal with because of my language barrier. And then fast forward to now, I just got recently married, and I'm still trying for the LSAT. And like we just moved in with my husband. I have a dog that I always talk to about my LSAT. We do LSAT questions together. So yeah, that's a bit about myself.
Thank you for sharing, Natalie. Eileen, would you like to share?
Yes. Okay. So I'm 27. Well, actually 26. I'm turning 27 shortly, but it's kind of going to be a little hard for me because I don't really like to talk about this that much. Like I'm pretty sure you guys don't. So my parents were divorced since I was 3 years old. I was born in Guatemala, and so I grew up with like a single mom, and I have like an older brother and sister, and so it was kind of hard always knowing that I only had one parent, and my mom never graduated high school. So she was working like minimum wage jobs, and most of the time she had like 2 jobs at a time. So my older brother was really kind of like my parent growing up, and he would like pick me up from school, or like drop me off. So we became like very independent, and we had to always just like help each other or learn from each other. And that kind of affected my studies always, because I never had a parent that I could really ask questions to, or who could help me with homework, because sometimes she didn't have the time or she didn't know the answer. So it's kind of hard to kind of teach yourself or teach them while you're learning too. And so luckily I was a hard worker, and I had good teachers who would always like try to help me out because they knew the situation. So that always helped. And I finally in high school went into this law and public safety academy. So I always went to Chicago public schools. I'm from Chicago. So that teacher really believed in me, and she like put me in this prep class for ACT, and she exposed me to a lot of what law was. So we were able to go to like the FBI building downtown, and we did mock trials, and we had an internship. Luckily, I was able to do an internship in Northwestern, which kind of grabbed the idea of wanting to work for like the wrongfully convicted. It's always been like a passion of mine, so I was glad that I did that internship. But that teacher believed in me like no one else had, and I was able to get into Loyola University. And there I majored in political science and criminal justice, which I learned a lot of like how institutions can affect people of color mainly, and how simple things like you're always feeling like institutionalized in a way, like in a way that you're always kind of having to defend yourself from other people so that they understand where you're coming from. And that happened to me a lot at that school, because it was mostly like people who had more money than me, or people who looked nothing like me. So I always felt like I didn't fit in at that school. And then at home, I felt like my parents didn't understand really where I was coming from. When I would try to explain these things, she would just think like, oh no, it's all in your head, you don't know what you're talking about. So I always felt like I didn't fit in back at home with my friends, because most of them didn't go to college. And I never felt like I fit into college because I didn't fit this mold that everybody else fit. I had to work while I went to school full time. I commuted. I didn't get to get the full college experience because I couldn't afford it. My mom couldn't afford it. So I felt like I was always constantly having to fight against the current. And I graduated from Loyola with a 3.4, so I actually did pretty good, even though I worked most of the time. And it was just this constant thing of like, am I good enough? Do I know what I'm doing? I remember like my first college paper that I ever turned in was like an English paper, and my professor just wrote on there like, oh, this is 8th grade writing. So I kind of felt really like offended by that. And it was just kind of like this thing of like, man, you don't know how hard you're right, I probably do, because I didn't have the teachers who could teach me the way I was supposed to. I never had a parent who could teach me the way I was supposed to. So I always felt like inferior to everyone else, or like, and I remember wanting to transfer from Loyola because I didn't feel like I fit in. And I was like, okay, this is just too much for me. I just have to find a school that's more like me. And I realized like I had to fight this. Like once I go to, corporate America or wherever life leads me, I'm always going to probably feel this way. And I have to teach others and myself that it's okay to not be like everyone else and just make your own space. So I feel like, those kind of struggles, like someone else said too, like they force you to be stronger and make yourself better, and to know that sometimes, yeah, we do have to fight twice as hard for the same things that other people don't. And I think that's kind of what my journey has taught me in life, is like fight twice as hard, even when you feel like you're alone, in this journey.
Thank you for sharing, Eileen. Jewel, would you like to share?
Thank you so much, Steve, for this opportunity. And I really appreciated hearing everyone's stories and, learning more about them. My name is Jewel Barnett, and pretty much just like a lot of the other participants, I faced a lot of adversity throughout my life. And like Eileen just said, like, feeling like
Jewel, just a quick reminder, please, no responding to anyone else's share directly.
Oh, sorry. In the course of my, I guess, life or schooling experiences, I've had a lot of people say, well, I don't think you can do that, or, I guess a lot of hesitation or doubt about how I would, I guess, be successful. So I have a background in education and also in statistics. I have, basically, when I was growing up, I thought I was going to be a teacher. And so I taught for about 8 years. And I went through trials in my life. And there was a time in my life when I was homeless. And I had a case manager. And I told her, you know, well, I'm thinking about going back to school. And she was like, I don't think that's a good idea. But I had people in my life who said, you know, you should definitely go for it. And so I did. So I have a master's degree in education, a master's degree in counseling. And in my master's program, I had a work study job. And in that position, I was like an admin to people who did research. And so I went on and I actually earned a PhD in demography. And so I'm from Texas and I'm in Maryland now. And I went back into teaching. So I did research for a few years and then I went back into teaching. And through different experiences, you know, I thought I had this moment where I thought, you know, if I could do anything in the world, what would it be? And I was like, I would probably go to law school. And so I had to talk to friends and, you know, find out like, what is this all about? And through this process, I found, you know, I started studying on my own for the LSAT. And then I found Steve's site and, you know, all the resources. So that's what I've been doing. I've been studying for about 7.5 months now. And my goal as well is definitely into public service, but I guess it's kind of just stay in the path and I don't know if I have the right word for it, but like just keep pushing. So I feel like the study plan really helps because it's like, it helps me, I guess, stay focused, like in small increments so that I'm, you know, able to make some improvement. So that's all I have.
Thank you for sharing, Jewel. So really powerful shares, everyone. I've really enjoyed listening. I hope you've all enjoyed listening too. We have some time, so I would love if we could all just take a minute or two to share an insight or reflection about this experience. And not to respond or piggyback directly on someone else's specific share, but of course, please share your insights and your takeaways from this experience. So we'll take a minute or two each. I'll start. One thing that really stood out to me was the idea that we're very impacted by our parents, by society, by culture. And as a result, we are shaped in certain ways. And our experiences walking through the world may differ dramatically from other people's experiences as a result of that. And so one takeaway for me coming out of this session is going to be both to think about how my perceptions walking around may impact how I view things, which is of course definitional, but the idea is that I'm seeing things differently than other people may see them. And so I should be somewhat skeptical of my own framing of the world. And at the same time, other people may have radically different perceptions as well as they're walking around, and that could impact how they interact with me. And so just to be aware that we're not all living on one level playing field or one level, not everyone has the same type of glasses. Some people's glasses are rose tinted, some are green, some are sunglasses, some people have no glasses at all. Everyone's got a totally different perception. So that's just something I'm going to be keeping in mind moving forward. Sade, would you like to share?
Yeah, one of the things take away from this is that self-reflection is a very important key in terms of moving forward, in terms of like where you want to go, where you desire, and also just keeping an open mind about it's okay that if you have no idea where your life experience is going to take you tomorrow, in a month, or a year, but just be very cognizant about the experiences that I've been through, and also just remember that they're unique to me, and that my life experiences will not necessarily break me, but they can also, you know, take me in a direction that is something I would have never imagined, but also just making sure that I stay true to myself and remember that everything that has ever happened to me, everything that will happen to me is going to be unique to me. And so I should always be proud of that, and stays true to myself for that. And so it's been great hearing about all these different stories that are unique to everybody else, and just encourage you guys to remember that what has happened to you and what will happen to you is unique to you.
Thank you for sharing, Sade. Zahid, would you like to share?
Yes, actually. So thank you, Steve, as always, for doing an amazing job. And for me, honestly, like my major takeaways from this is that it's more inspiring to me to go to law school, because I think law school is not only from this. I feel like it's not only about just some nerdy people who are like, of course, I'm not doubting anybody's like credentials here, but it's also about like some amazing folks who are like aspiring to change the world or change their society. I think these stories like are quite amazing, and I really think that for me it just inspires me more to go to law school, because I'm sure like law schools are filled with such amazing, you know, people with interesting life experiences. So yeah, that's honestly like what I you know, learned from this whole thing. So I thank you and everybody else for this meeting.
Thank you, Zahid. Erica, would you like to share?
Yeah, Steve, once again, thank you for having this forum, having a safe space for us to talk about our stories. I think one thing for me that I took away from this is that I'm not the only one. I think sometimes, you know, in life, you're in a bubble and you're just, you know, oh man, I'm really struggling here. Everyone I heard, I was just blown away about, you know, just their stories and what they had to overcome. And you know, we are more connected, we have more things in common than what we realize. And everyone here talked about, including myself, working hard to get to where we need to go. So that's kind of what I took away, is I'm not the only one experiencing hardship and, you know, working hard towards my dreams. I wasn't the only one who's been told that's ridiculous, you know, that's not a good idea. And you know, and I'm also not the only one who is striving to do better. So I have just been inspired by everyone's stories that I can make it too. You know, we all can make it. If we work hard and really be intentional as to what it is we want to do, we can make it no matter what, no matter where we came from, what we've been through. So that's my reflection.
Thank you for sharing, Erica. Natalie?
Again, thank you, Steve, for this forum. It was very nice and very helpful. The major takeaway for me is that everyone thinks their problem is the biggest problem in the world. And what I learned is that everyone experiences the same level of problems. It's just unique to themselves. And from here, this forum today, I learned that everyone actually wants to go to school, law school, for a cause, and not just to get a good big check every like month or so. It's just really important that everyone that wants to go to law school is going for a cause, and not because our parents told us so. You have to be an engineer, lawyer, or a doctor. So I think every experience has shaped us, and it's really important. Like, I'm proud of our generation, everyone here that are going after a cause, and together we can make it all happen. So thank you again.
Thank you, Natalie. Eileen, would you like to share?
Yeah. So same thing, Steve. Thank you seriously so much for doing this, especially because of the reflections I'm about to talk about. I feel like one very important thing that came through this is the validity. So basically, I didn't realize it either, but through this forum, I feel like I have more validity in the sense of like, yeah, I do have a struggle, and other people got to acknowledge it. And I feel like that to me was powerful, and also acknowledging and hearing everyone else's story. and acknowledging their struggle. Sometimes I feel like going through my experience, I just focused on like, oh, you know, am I making this up? Can someone else understand what I'm talking about? Feeling out of place, and you know, it validizes that yes, this does happen, and it doesn't only happen to me. So that, and the powerful of being kindness to one another. I feel like you know, a few people also mentioned how it took an unkind word or, you know, questioning from someone else, myself included, to put you in a state of mind where it's like questioning yourself. And you know, sometimes like we have to be conscientious not to do it to other people if it's been done to us. I think those two things are very powerful, and I learned that through this experience. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Eileen. Jewel, would you like to share?
Thanks again, Steve. I just feel like this was a really great opportunity, and just hearing everyone's stories, it just, I know it sounds cliche, but we're better together. And I feel like just even with everything that you share with us and just in the Facebook group, it just knowing that we have each other's backs. And so like whatever we might be going through in a moment, it's going to all add up for the good because we're all pushing towards our goals. And so I'm really thankful for y'all.
Thanks, Jewel. And thanks to all of you for being so vulnerable and open and sharing your experiences. I really appreciate it. This is enormously useful for me as well. Even though I'm not on the law school path specifically, just as a human being, that I have the chance to share my experience and my story and connect with all of you in a different way and to learn more about each and every one of you. You've all been through such incredible hardships and adversities, yet you've made it to this point, and you're going to all go on to do bigger and better things. And I'm happy and honored to be part of your journey along the way. And I'm always, of course, happy to help however I can. So thanks to all of you for showing up so powerfully. I'm glad you found this valuable. And please keep in touch. Let me know if you need anything going forward. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.